Nobody knows why strategy was rejected from the S&P 500 last Friday. Strangely, MicroStrategy or strategy didn't dump like many people thought it might. The real question is probably, do the insiders know something that we don't? Well, Michael Saylor has just said some really interesting words about it when he was asked about this on the national news yesterday. So let's check that out.
And I guess I wonder if you think Standard & Poor's or others, or, you know, if anybody has any sort of bias towards crypto still at this point, because the S&P 500 just came out with their decisions and they chose to go with Robinhood and AppLovin over strategy. And a lot of people were kind of surprised by that. The stock actually was down a little bit. Do you think that there is a bias at any of the indexes or any places that come through this against a company with a lot of Bitcoin in holdings?
I don't think there's a bias. I don't think we expected to be selected on our first quarter of eligibility. We figure it'll happen at some time. There's a digital transformation in the markets. This is a brand new novel concept. Every quarter we make new believers. We get more support from banks, from politicians, from credit rating agencies, et cetera. I think that will continue for the foreseeable future.
Interesting that Saylor is so confident. Of course, wait, I got Luke here with me on today's show, but let's just dive into that last portion. Look, even though I was very I guess optimistic that MicroStrategy would get added to the S&P 500. Obviously, a lot of Bitcoiners were, I would say, disappointed. It would be a historic moment to have strategy added to the S&P 500. It wouldn't be the first Bitcoin company, quote unquote, Bitcoin company to be added to the S&P 500. We saw that Coinbase got added, I believe it was May. Yeah, I think it was May. But it would be the first Bitcoin treasury company to get added to the S&P 500. And that would obviously, I think, change a lot of things and really be a historic moment for Bitcoin companies, et cetera. And it was surprising to see some of the names that were added. I mean, me and Luke were talking about this morning. Like, what is this AppLovin company? Is this like a dating app or something? It's not a dating app, but it almost acts like a dating app. It was what was it for, like business connections or something like that? The Robinhood edition makes a lot more sense, to be honest. Now, of course, strategy, I think it was like the second biggest company that was looked at for the September addition to the S&P 500. As Saylor recently said, he believes it'll probably be added in October. Now, I think the interesting part, and I was mentioning this yesterday, this idea that even though Wall Street is begrudgingly kind of accepting Bitcoin, they aren't fully convinced yet. And I think this was kind of the idea that Saylor was trying to get across. Obviously, he's on national news. He's a CEO. He's a much more public figure. He can't outright say this, but I think that's the feeling that I'm getting when I hear the words that Saylor said. It's like every week, every quarter, every year, we are getting more believers. We're turning the skeptics into believers. And I think that's kind of like a zeitgeist of where we are right now in the Bitcoin adoption cycle. Even though Wall Street is looking at Bitcoin, yes, they've been talking about it. Yes, there's Bitcoin ETFs. Yes, the institutions are trying to position themselves. Yes, again, the ETF was just launched a year ago. These institutions take a while for them to really kind of, change course on what their investment strategies are. What do you got here?
Oh, I was just pulling up the chart of MicroStrategy. Apologies, I didn't mean to bring that up while you were talking.
Okay,
but,
all right, okay. So yes, these products are relatively new in the grand scheme of things. And yes, we're seeing a trickle into Bitcoin, but I think the kind of unspoken saying that Saylor just mentioned is this idea is like, we still have some work to do. We still have to fully convince Wall Street that this is the play. Yes, they're looking into Bitcoin. They have to take time to go through the regulatory hurdles. They have to do their research. They have to figure out their position sizing. Again, there's more bureaucracy when it comes on an institutional level. And so I think this is, again, just a moment of clarity for us Bitcoiners that we are essentially still on the verge of the adoption of Bitcoin coming from an institutional level. They have stepped into the market. There's interest in Bitcoin. The institutions are here. We no longer have to wonder whether they're here or not, but they haven't really moved in force yet. And I think this is what this delay, if you want to be a little more optimistic about the strategy inclusion to S&P 500, really kind of sheds light on. They're taking a moment. They're taking a beat. If we had the S&P 500 include strategy, I think that would just essentially kick off a flood of new capital coming in, not necessarily because the capital is going into strategy per se, but because that would be a tacit approval of what they are doing. Now, strategy or Michael Saylor has been dominating the performance of stocks. I think to date, they're like the best performing stock this year. Maybe Nvidia is still above them a little bit, but nothing's been performing as well as strategy. And I think they're still taking kind of a moment to fully accept what Saylor is doing. This did bring up the conversation last week of, is this Wall Street attacking Bitcoin or rather Bitcoiners? You could argue that that might be the case. I just think it was a little too soon, too quick. Like, I think I even kind of stepped back a little bit on the Friday show and was mentioning I wouldn't be surprised if strategy doesn't get accepted into the S&P 500 yet. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if they get accepted next month or if it still gets delayed into 2026. And I think that will give us further proof and further data of what Wall Street thinks of Bitcoin. And we are seeing that there is some pushback here. So I think Saylor is super confident it's going to happen. Again, his stock was one of the biggest companies to even be acknowledged to be admitted to the S&P 500. But I think it just shows that we are still early in the institutional adoption of Bitcoin. And once this does get accepted, once strategy does get accepted, it will be a tipping point. It will be one of those, again, tacit approvals. It'll be one of those indirect signals that, yeah, Bitcoin is here. It's not going away. And in time, we will probably look back at this year as a very important year. So I will stop there. Luke, what is your thoughts on what Saylor is saying on his inclusion into the S&P 500?
So I've got a ton of thoughts on what Saylor says, and maybe what's actually happening, because I do think it's just strange that a company like @Lovin is included in front of MicroStrategy. That's, for me, just doesn't math. Okay, the math doesn't math. Opti and I always talk about that here on the show. I mean, MicroStrategy is a $100 billion company. Their treasury, like the amount of Bitcoin on their treasury, there's only about 6 or 7 other companies in the entire world that have more savings in their treasury than MicroStrategy. The amount of profit that they made in the last quarter, they were one of the 10 companies to get $10 billion worth of profit last quarter. So just when you run the maths and you run the numbers, strategy looks like a top 10 company, not an S&P 500 level worthy company. The numbers is very clear. They're one of the biggest, most impactful companies around the world. So again, a little bit of a preface to a lot of my comments today. I'm a little bit more on the conspiratorial side of things, purely because the numbers just don't add up for me. He should have got in months ago, really. I mean, if he gets in October, that'll be really interesting. But I think if he got denied now, what's going to change between now and October? We also talked about this last week on Thursday. The day before the S&P 500 was supposed to make that very pivotal decision on which companies would get added into the S&P 500 on that Friday, the NASDAQ came out and they kind of said, whoa, let's hold up a little bit. We're actually going to be changing how we evaluate what companies get into the NASDAQ and how we delist companies off the NASDAQ. And they essentially said, like, look, if you want to be a Bitcoin treasury company who's trying to boost your stock price through buying cryptocurrencies, you need to now go and get more approval from your shareholders. I thought that was interesting. I thought that was strange. I thought the timing of that announcement was just really strange. Strategy came straight out on Twitter and they said the NASDAQ's change doesn't affect us. I mean, that's what I would say as well if I was the CEO of Strategy, or if I was a company who was listed on the NASDAQ, who was relying on buying Bitcoin for my stock price to go in a certain direction. I think that's, firstly, just strange and interesting. And I think there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes right now that I don't think many people are aware of. Okay, so that's kind of my thoughts. I want to get into my thoughts on what Saylor said, but what I want to have a look at first here is the charts. Now, again, we always tell you, we're not simply charts. We're not TA gurus. We don't know where the price of Bitcoin is going. But what I do want to show you is something interesting here. I'm gonna refresh my page. We're looking at the share price of MicroStrategy. I'm gonna start by giving you a little bit of a zoomed out view of MicroStrategy. So MicroStrategy's really just been chopping sideways here since November. We peaked in November at $540 a share. And you can see more recently, we've just been chopping around between $540 and $230 a share. Now, what's really interesting is this is kind of catastrophic news for MicroStrategy. Being rejected to enter the $61 trillion market, the S&P 500, this is kind of catastrophic news. So again, I would have expected that MicroStrategy would have absolutely taken a dump on Monday morning. But what's really interesting is here on the chart, this big blue line, that is showing you Friday. So I'm looking at the daily chart of Bitcoin. So that means every single one of those red or green candles, that represents one day. Now you can see this blue line is on Friday. You can see MicroStrategy has not dumped since Friday. If anything, their stock price is a little bit up. Now, Opti, again, we're not technical analysis gurus, we're not traders, but something that is common knowledge in the trading space is that when a stock doesn't dump on bad news, that's typically somewhere close to the bottom. And it's the same at the highs. If you're in a parabolic bull run, things are going to the moon, and if all of a sudden you see some incredibly bullish news, and if the stock price doesn't go up in the days after that piece of news or on the day of that news, maybe you have ran out of buyers. And I don't know, but maybe we have ran out of MicroStrategy sellers. Again, who knows what's happening in the short term? Nobody knows where Bitcoin or any stock is going in the short term, but I'm trying to paint a broader picture here. I think it's strange that strategy is not accepted into the S&P 500 alongside the NASDAQ pivot. And I find it really strange that their stock price isn't dumping. So I think someone there is buying some MicroStrategy, which I think answers the question we posed on the thumbnail of today's video. But Opti, I'd love your thoughts. I said a lot. I'll pause there for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I don't know if I'd agree that this is catastrophic news per se. That would probably be something I don't know, a little more hard hitting. I think the way Saylor kind of responded, as he said directly, he's like, I wasn't expecting to get accepted into the S&P 500 on our first attempt. And so I think from a Bitcoiner's perspective, or rather from a lower IQ Bitcoin Twitter perspective, everyone gets super excited when it comes to Bitcoin stuff. And we think we're a lot bigger than we are. We have this hubris that everyone sees what we see about Bitcoin, and it's a no-brainer. And of course, from our perspective, I think it is a no-brainer for strategy to get accepted into the S&P 500. It's obviously been the best performing stock, like, period. And so it probably should have. Now, it is interesting, like you said, that the sell-off wasn't that bad, to be honest. It's really the structure didn't change at all. You wouldn't even know that they had a quote unquote bad news event because the price is still holding on pretty good. So I think that's safe to say that the people, at least the bulk shareholders of MicroStrategy, kind of expected this delay to happen. And then, like you said, it does seem like there are, or rather, because I don't hold MicroStrategy, but that we're seeing basically the sellers of MicroStrategy, running out of money. No one is looking at MicroStrategy. Well, there's a lot of people that are trying to short the stock, but people aren't looking to sell out of their position because they understand what's coming on the horizon. And like you said, to answer the question, look, I don't hold MicroStrategy. Full disclosure, I don't hold MSTR. In hindsight, I probably would have liked to buy it in 2020. It would have been a great move. But if you are in MicroStrategy, I don't think it's time to panic. I wouldn't be selling it. Yes, there's been some pain. Yes, maybe there's a little more correction involved here. But if you are still a believer in what Saylor is doing, I think it's pretty safe to say that they will get included soon, and the stonk will regain a lot of what it's lost in the last couple of months. I know it looks like Saylor's running out of money because his ATMs are getting smaller and smaller. Is that signal that people are losing faith in MicroStrategy? I don't think so. I just think that like it's harder to gain, or sorry, it's harder to create these billion-dollar ATM processes week after week. And so there's still not that much money out there. And it really does connect to me this idea that there's not that many Bitcoin buyers at the moment. And so the only people that are really being committed to this MicroStrategy play are people that already know what's going to happen. And so until we get a new influx of people understanding what's going on, I'm sure we might be going sideways for a little bit. Again, the volume's been dead. No one's really looking at Bitcoin like it used to be, though we are seeing a lot of problems in the macro economy right now globally. There's a lot of things going on that I think people are essentially waiting on the sidelines because there is so much uncertainty. They don't know where to actually put their capital. And I think this is why, as I was saying yesterday, we're seeing gold start ripping. It's hitting another all-time high today, which really makes me feel that there is some very smart money out there that do know what's going on, or people are just panicking right now and they're trying to go into the safest thing to invest in or hold their value, which is, of course, historically gold. So I think people are waiting on the sideline right now. They're just kind of waiting to get a little more clarity in the market. And once we do get that clarity, which could be next week after these Fed rate cuts, it does seem that the markets are getting ready to rip, and people are just waiting. They're sitting on their hands. They don't know what to do with their money because I don't know if you guys saw, I was covering it yesterday, but the labor market reports came in. They revised it, but I believe it was like 911,000 jobs. And so the TLDR, the short of it, is essentially all the economic data right now is completely fake. If the job numbers were cut by 50%, essentially you could argue that the economic data that people are using to trade, it's wholly incorrect. And this is what's going on. People they're starting to realize that the data they are using to invest the bulk of their capital is wrong, and they're trying to figure out what the North Star is. Now, as a Bitcoiner, we would obviously say Bitcoin is the North Star, but we still have a long ways to go. And I really liked, I forget what her name is on Squawk Box, but I do like her question, though it was leading in these ideas like, is there a bias against Bitcoin? I think we could safely say there is. Saylor, as a professional politician, you could argue. I think he sideswiped that question perfectly and was like, look, that's not the question I want to answer. Is we are constantly creating new believers in Bitcoin, and it's just going to continue to go up, which I think is probably going to align perfectly with Bitcoin going up. So yeah, to answer the question on the thumbnail, I wouldn't be selling MicroStrategy right now. Again, this isn't financial advice. You should probably know what you're holding, but I know a lot of people in the chat the last couple of weeks have been wondering, is MSTR going to go back up? Should I sell it? Should I be worried? I personally don't think you should be, but again, I don't hold MSTR, so it's been a while of me trying to understand exactly what Saylor's doing, and it seems like he knows what he's doing. So I would let Saylor do all the talking on that, but just the fact that he's not worried about it is probably a good sign, and he does know this process a little better than people on Twitter do. So I think it's hopeful for the next inclusion attempt that they'll probably get in, but it will be interesting if they do get delayed again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the biggest, slayer of heroes, or I'm the last person to trust an expert in most realms. But the amounts of thinking that Michael Saylor has put into engineering MicroStrategy stock, it is more thinking that I could engineer in a lifetime, even with AI at my fingertips. At this stage, I think you've just got to trust the man. I think he knows what he's doing. And I think the fact that he's taken MicroStrategy from $1 billion in 2020 to 100 billion today in 2025. It's pretty representative of the fact that the man knows what he's doing. And I think, again, in the short run, I think some of the more I think some of the more dangerous advice to listen to is short-term advice. Nobody knows what is going on with anything in the short run. And I think what gold is doing right now is a massive warning sign that somebody knows what the Fed is going to do next. Opti mentioned it earlier. Gold set another new all-time high today. Right now it's $3,600 an ounce. And it's not really until you zoom out, until you kind of realize just how catastrophic gold's rally over the past 18 months has been. It was, again, under $2,000 an ounce in the beginning of 2024. Now, again, less than 2 years later, we're nearly at $3,700 an ounce. I think gold is screaming right now that there is a problem with the monetary system. Central banks are loading up on gold. They're dumping treasuries, not just US government debt, but all of the government debt. This is euros. This is all sorts of government money. People are saying there is a crisis with government money and unbacked money, and I need a solution. And again, that's Bitcoin. We're simply Bitcoin. We're not simply stocks. We're not simply gold. We're simply Bitcoin for a reason, because we think it's the best solution. But I think gold is telling you Bitcoin's going to rip. Again, I'm not the biggest believer in correlations, but historically, Bitcoin lags gold by about 100 days. So, I mean, hey, if you've seen what gold's done in the past 100 days, Bitcoin's about to do that if history repeats. So I'm, again, incredibly bullish for the short, the medium, and the long term for Bitcoin. And I think most people are too scared looking at those daily red candles. Oh, MicroStrategy's down 20% this month. Who cares? Zoom out. Have a look at what Bitcoin and MicroStrategy have done over the past 12, 18, 24 months. Again, a while ago, I was making videos in the beginning of 2024 thinking, is Bitcoin ever going to get back above $20,000 a coin again? We've got all these macro gurus and TradFi gurus saying Bitcoin's going to 3K. Oh, they're going to try to liquidate Michael Saylor. That was the narrative just 18 months ago in early 2024. Zoom out, and now where are we? We're at 100. We're at $110,000 per coin. So I think, again, what do we do on this show? We continue to encourage you guys to think in the long term. Opti, I'd love your thoughts. What do you think about the long-term picture of Bitcoin here? And I know yesterday you guys talked about Russia and some of the interesting things happening over there. They're famously a country with a lot of gold reserves. Do you think they are potentially contributing to that parabolic gold price chart we just looked at?
Yeah, well, it's not just Russia. We saw China stocking up on gold, Russia stocking up on gold. Obviously, individuals are stocking up on gold. We've seen this fight this whole year of countries trying to repatriate their gold. The U.S. has basically been telling, like, no, you can't take your gold. So obviously, when people are scared, they go to the hard assets. And historically, gold's been the hardest asset. But I think the signal is exactly that. Like, if gold is ripping this hard, it is telling you something about the economy. And that should probably worry a lot of people. But most people, I think, are asleep at the wheel, and they just don't really, they're not looking at the right data. They're not looking at the right signals. They're, everyone's basing their investment or their economic reality on fake numbers. And gold is telling us everything that you think to be the norm is not exactly what's going on. It's starting to rip. So yeah, seeing gold rip this high, it's actually an incredible moment that we're seeing. And yeah, historically, Bitcoin does lag Bitcoin's gold rush or gold price pump. But Bitcoin will go up higher. So look, in the short term, we have no idea what's going to happen. There could be a lot of pain. I was talking with one of my friends this morning, and gold is essentially, or the investors in gold are essentially pricing in a rate cut in next week. We don't know how big it is. We literally saw Trump this morning saying that the Fed is broken, that they need to pump or cut rates by 25 to 100 bips. If we see a 100 bip cut, a 1% cut in interest rates, that is crazy. That is absolutely nuts. And what I was telling my friend was, he was basically saying gold's ripping. And I was like, yeah, this is crazy what we're seeing. And he's like, the gold is essentially pricing in rate cuts. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what's going on. But what is going to be interesting is to see how the markets react to rate cuts. A lot of people are expecting this will be a bullish scenario. If we see the markets tank, like I said, in short term, there might be some pain, but the long-term play is still the same. Like long-term play is still what, 7-figure Bitcoin in 5 to 10 years. Like its numbers going up. They're going to continue to print money. The money printer is about to turn on. Free money era is coming back, which all means more liquidity in the system means Bitcoin has to go up. That's just how it works. And so, yeah, my long-term view of this is the same as it's always been. Bitcoin's going up forever, Laura. You need to buy some. You need to save in it. You need to store it correctly. And that's just what's going on in the short term. And actually, this next clip is going to kind of explain the same thing I've been saying for a while. Like in the short term, what we see happening day by day, it may not seem like that much is changing. But when we look back in hindsight, the stuff that happens in Bitcoin, it happens so quickly, and we're seeing paradigm shifts happen every day. And so, yeah, short term, who knows what's going to happen in the markets? I'm kind of leaning towards the view that the markets are going to tank when we see these Fed rate cuts. Everyone's thinking this is going to be bullish. Markets are going to start ripping. I'm kind of the view that we're going to see the markets tank and then in the short term get some kind of correction. Then long term, obviously, as people feel more comfortable with the economy and the economic signals, they are going to start investing again. So I'm kind of viewing that this next week, even though it's going to be a bullish scenario for Bitcoin, I think the markets are going to tank. Like markets are not looking that good right now. And of course, Bitcoin's going to probably go down as well, but it will rebound faster and harder than everything else. So yeah, I don't know if what we're going to see happen in a week or so is necessarily the most bullish setup, but it is setting up a bullish environment for Bitcoin with a lot of free money, interest rates low. People need to find somewhere to store their wealth, and usually they do go into quote unquote riskier assets, which historically would have been, going into gold, but now we have a different different medium here that is Bitcoin. So yeah, long term I'm bullish. Obviously, like I wouldn't be me if I wasn't bullish on Bitcoin. So yeah, I think long term we're good to go, Luke.
Dude, spicy take. Market's going to react negatively to the rate
I think so, dude. Everyone's saying, because look, I am a left side of the bell curve person. If everyone's saying, oh, rate cuts are bullish, markets are going to start pumping, I'm going to just take the opposite view. I think markets are going to tank. We'll probably be hurting in the short term, but setting up into October when they really kind of turn on the free money again, I think it's going to be a bullish setup. So look, what do I know? I think Bitcoin might retest the 95K area. I think I was looking at that area this morning. If they do tank, that's probably where we'll go, a little under 100K for the last time, and then it starts ripping. So yeah, I'm kind of leaning toward markets are going to tank when they finally announce that they're cutting the interest rates. But I don't know. Do you think they're going to rip? Are you on the other side?
So I have two things. I'm going to not show both of these straight away. I'm going to save one of those things for later. But let's have a look at this is the chart of the S&P 500. I just noticed how nuts this thing looks. Like, look at each melt up and each correction. It just gets bought up even more aggressively than the last. I mean, so to answer your question, Opti, having a look at how parabolic this thing is and how parabolic it has gone. It's gone straight up since April 2025 from 470 to 650. I mean, there is fair room for it to have a little correction. Absolutely. I'm on board with that idea. I don't think it's outrageous for the S&P 500 to see a little bit of a correction, but just this chart, I mean, that's kind of catastrophic. Each correction, it's getting more and more parabolic, and this kind of like, this just looks like the melt-up thesis in one chart. What do you think, Opti?
Yeah, I mean, look, the economy basically hinges on the S&P 500 here. It's like what the Dow, S&P 500. It's really the Mag 7, whatever the Mag 7 does, which is I think we brought this up on the show. Essentially, it's only 7 companies out of the S&P 500 that are driving all of this, you know, bullish performance here, and everything else is essentially like a zombie company here. So yeah, if we do see a bearish scenario here in the next week or so, yeah, there could be a huge correction. Well, maybe it's not that huge. I mean, it looks big on the chart, but it's really only what, like a less than 1% correction, or maybe it's a 1 or 2% correction and everyone freaks out. So look, I really don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is I feel safe in holding Bitcoin. If we do see a correction, it's a buying opportunity, and everyone's trolling me. Opti's a bear, so bull market cometh. Opti is short. Why are you being bearish, Opti? Opti is trolling. No, guys, look, that's just kind of what I see right now. Everyone's saying that rate cuts are going to be extremely bullish. I do agree that long term it will be extremely bullish, but when they announce this, it's probably going to tank the markets. It's just kind of what I'm seeing. We're seeing a lot of economic data that is making the case for me. I've been covering that on the show for a while. It doesn't look like the economy is as healthy as the headlines are. I know Trump keeps saying that if we cut rates, you know, this is going to be healthy for the economy. My main kind of variable here is if they cut rates and the markets don't react exactly how they think it will, then that is just further proof that the institutions have lost control. And that's probably a bearish scenario on a macro kind of landscape here. So that's kind of my, I guess you could say, my bearish take, my contrarian take here is essentially just, I'm looking at both sides of the aisle. Obviously, they cut interest rates, more liquidity, free money flows. That's going to be bullish for Bitcoin. But if they cut rates and nothing happens, and actually what they think is going to happen, the opposite happens, that's really bad. So hey, I don't know. That's just that's kind of my two sides of the coin that I'm seeing right now. All right, guys. Okay. Everyone's freaking out. Guys, I'm still bullish. I'm just saying, short term, it might be a bearish scenario. That's all I'm saying, guys. Okay. Don't have to freak out about it.
And here's the thing: if markets react negatively in the very short term, over the week after that rate cut, that means they're just going to have to cut rates even harder and open up the money printing spigots even wider, which eventually leads to what we both agree on: in the medium term or the long term, more money is going to have to be printed. This 4-year liquidity cycle hasn't even really started playing out. We played you guys a clip recently of Dr. Jeff Ross saying that, look, you know, the liquidity cycle, it's lagging a little bit more than previously. You know, instead of predicting a peak in, you know, November, December, it looks as if the liquidity cycle won't peak until early next year. So now we're talking January, February, or March. So I can just see a pretty convincing medium-term case for money printing to be coming, and obviously we all know that's good for Bitcoin.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, chat. You guys are funny. The chat is funny. Someone says Opti has been co-opted. Guys, look, I'm just trying to be. I'm just trying to be rational. What's going on instead of extremely bullish and like. Look, I still believe everything's good for Bitcoin, but I'm just looking at what's going on, and the data that I'm seeing, the official data they're putting out, is not making me feel good about where the economy is right now. You know, you may call it a recession, you may call it going into another depression. I'm just saying this might not work out exactly how they think they do. And if that's the case, if that's the bear case, then we will probably see some panic in the market. So that's like all I'm saying. Long term, bullish for Bitcoin. Personally, if more people lose trust in the institutions, the dollar's purchasing power weakens. This is all a bull case for Bitcoin. Maybe I'm just a full accelerationist today. You know, maybe I'm feeling accelerationism right now on the show, but that's all I'm saying. We got to try to be as clear in our thinking as possible. Obviously, everything's bullish for Bitcoin, but if things don't work out exactly as we write them down in theory, then Okay, all right. And I don't have to justify myself. Okay, this is just what I think. All right. Anyways, let's get into the rest of the show. But before I move on, I do want to remind you guys, of course, smash the like button, comment on the show. What do you think? Am I being a bear? Comment on the video. Am I being a bear? And of course, hit the subscriber button. Make sure you are following us on YouTube. I think the last stat is 40% of you guys don't sub on our channel. So get those numbers up, guys. And of course, I do want to give a huge shout out to our boys over at Bitcoin Well. If you think we are in a crazy scenario, you need to make sure you're buying real Bitcoin. And the best way to ensure you're getting the real thing is not letting the exchanges hold it. Right when your fiat goes through, right when it clears, you get Bitcoin directly into your cold storage. This is the best way to buy Bitcoin. Of course, they have never lost Bitcoin. They will never lose Bitcoin because they never hold your Bitcoin. So scan this QR code. And when you do, you have 3 chances to win 1,000,000 sats. I repeat, 1,000,000 sats. And I will do the Bitcoin wishing well at the end of the show. On that note, let's get into the rest of the show. So I got some stuff here. I got a good clip coming out of Palm. This guy, I don't know who he is, but I really like his take that Bitcoin's run to $15 trillion market caps will be faster than the Mag 7. And then we have some interesting stuff coming out of the Democrats from the Senate in regards to market structure. And then I'm sure you guys heard there was a little wallet scare last night. We got a little more information this morning, clear up a lot of things. So we're going to be covering that on today's show. On that note, let's get into the rest of it.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates. Instead of just writing them down on paper, paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
Hey, yo, chat, I'm still bullish, okay? I'm still bullish that Bitcoin's going to rip. I'm just saying short term, we might see, we might have some storms in the water, all right? I'm not saying Bitcoin's not ripping. Jeez, guys, I think we're still going to rip end of year, but I'm just saying, you know, next week, rational feel, exactly. Next week, it might not be as bullish as we think it is, okay? Long-term, end of year is super bullish. Anyways, current Bitcoin price is $110,980. That's a negative 10.8% decline from all-time high. The market cap is, crabbing around 2.21 trillion. And the current block height is 913,930. Okay, guys, so as I was explaining to you guys before the ad break here, I saw this clip here, and it's honestly super bullish. I really like it. And me and Luke were talking about it this morning. At first, I was like, what, this quote tweet here was like, wait, like what exactly is he saying? So Jordy Beiser says Bitcoin will get to a 15 trillion market cap much faster than the 18 years it took the Mag 7. And when your initial read of this, you're like, so does that mean Bitcoin's going to, what was the math, Luke? $700,000 in 3 years? No, that's not the initial read, guys. So let's play this clip here, and then we'll talk about just how fast I think Bitcoin is also going to rip.
I still believe we are going to shock people in the short time, since for us to double from 100 or 95 to 200 by the end of the year is very unlikely, at least where it is now and where the implied vol is. So probabilistically, it's not there. I've been through this cycle before of innovation. And what I mean by that for everyone listening, so Bitcoin moves faster and technology today moves much faster than it did in the past. What the Mag 7 accomplished from 2007 to today in 15 years, people have to go look.
Breathtaking.
Yeah, I mean, you went from 1 trillion to 15 trillion when you combine all that. This is going to take a lot less time. So Bitcoin's going to get to 15 trillion. It's going to happen. And I believe it's going to happen in much less time. The reason is because of artificial intelligence. So I started doing this because I like to speak a language where AI is in the middle of the traditional finance world and Bitcoin. And I wanted to bridge those two groups together and say, you have to understand that the fuel for moving money from this side to this side is going to take AI. AI will disrupt all investments on this side, which make them less investable, and gradually people will move into Bitcoin.
So AI will disrupt the legacy system.
The legacy system.
And it's going to bring things into this new
more into the digital. It has to be more efficient. It has to be good. I was giving an example to someone. If you understand poker and you're at a poker table, there's I forget the famous line that Doyle Brunson said, but he basically said, if you don't know who the sucker is at the table, you're the sucker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you're not using AI in your business, if you have a lot of people and you're not using AI, which is the way most incumbents are, they're gradually looking to the CTO. The CTOs at every company I've ever seen think they can do anything better than any existing technology. The incumbents are going to get screwed. So they're sitting at the table and they're good poker players today, but they're not using AI the same way that the smaller kids are doing. And when they get at the table, and once everyone at the table has AI and you don't, you are the sucker at the table. That will happen slowly because the adoption takes time. AI agents are coming. They're coming quickly. And as they come quickly, more and more decisions will be made by computers and less by humans. That's what Bitcoin needs. Because Bitcoin this year, we're talking about it like it's not doing well. It's outperformed the S&P. The only thing it hasn't outperformed this year is gold. That's it. And then some of the foreign markets, but it's outperformed them by a lot. So I think as people kind of get used to this, at some point, just like the Mag 7, this will go parabolic. And I think everything today is happening in about 1/10 the time. So if it took 15 years to go from 1 trillion to 15 trillion with the Mag 7, I'm not saying it's going to happen in 1/10 the time, meaning 1.5 years. But I do believe that people are going to be shocked in this move higher. And the time where this happens is when vol collapses in my history. So Bitcoin saying it's going to double in a year was a very low probability event with the vol at 40. I'm a Black-Scholes guy. That's where I spent my life. The probability of what I was saying was less than 2% at the beginning of the year. I still think this stuff is going to happen.
Interesting. Look, you guys know me. I'm not the biggest AI guy here. I think it's a glorified search engine. Okay. Sue me if that, that's why maybe I'm bearish on AI, but I do like this take. One, I guess the main point here, if you want to get extremely bullish, is actually, Luke, I was trying to find the Bitcoin market cap so we can check how long it took us to get to 2 trillion from 1 trillion. And then we can kind of push this in a timeline. So as he was saying, 1 trillion to 15 trillion from the Mag 7 took them 18 years. And he's saying Bitcoin's going to go that much faster because of technology and how rapid technology takes over the world. And so, again, he did put the caveat that, yeah, it's not going to happen in 1.5 years that we're going to get to a 15 trillion market cap. But even if you extend that timeline a little bit, it's basically saying what? 15 trillion again, Luke, what was the number? $700,000 Bitcoin. It's not going to take 18 years to get there. So you can basically say that, hey, that 2030 prediction of $700,000 per Bitcoin is like easily attainable here. I like some hopium on a Tuesday, I'm like, yeah, I agree with this. Bitcoin is taking over the world faster than the Mag 7 is. And when you look back at what the Mag 7 has done in those 15 years, like our lives have fundamentally changed. And I think we do underestimate how impactful Bitcoin's change will be the next, 5 to 15 years from now. I think we're going to be living in a totally different world. So Opti's the sucker at the table. How? I hold Bitcoin. What are you talking about? I'm holding Bitcoin. What do you mean?
You know what? I'm also holding Bitcoin, Opti, so I hope I'm also not the sucker at the table. But what I thought was most interesting about that clip I want to talk about the Mag 7 in a moment here, but he's talking about the compression of time window. I think that's fascinating because, again, call me crazy, but I think there's a fractal I want to show you guys. So this is the chart of gold. I've got this priced in US dollars, and you can see that this is absolutely parabolic. Now, what I think is really interesting is when you take a look at the price of gold in German marks during 1923, I think I found a somewhat similar fractal that I want to show you guys. And again, we have to consider that there's some sort of like time compression going on here. But I think this window of time between 1920, so this little part right here, and 1922, I think this 2-year window on a chart, I think this represents the 12 to 13 year period where gold hit a new all-time high of $1,900 per ounce in 2011. And I look at when it re-hit that all-time high of 2020 of $1,900 an ounce, I think that this in 2011 represents 1919, and I think this 15-year consolidation actually represents that 2-year consolidation that we saw in the hyperinflation of the gold mark. So if I jump back on over here, I think right now we're like somewhere around here. I think we've just gone parabolic. The price of gold has gone
it's that first leg up before the correction. 2020, that first leg up right there.
Exactly. I'm glad that you can see what I'm saying, Opti, because a lot of people think, oh, gold's going parabolic. It has to have a 50% correction and now go sideways for another 50 years. I don't know, guys. I kind of feel like gold is telling us we're like 10 to 20% of the way through the move. And it's only the more and the more times you look at these two charts that I'm personally becoming more and more convinced that this is kind of what we're seeing. The similarities is kind of mind-blowing. And I kind of feel like, yes, gold's had an incredible run recently, but I kind of feel like we're really early on that hockey stick up. So this kind of validates what
Wait, Luke, yeah? Change the month candles and go to like 3 month. Maybe it'll look a lot closer to that chart. And yeah, we are manipulating the data here so it visually looks better, okay?
Absolutely. It really does. Now, if I jump back on over to the hyperinflation of the German mark in the early 1920s, you can kind of see, I think this 2-year consolidation here between 1919 and 1921, I think that perfectly aligns with 2011 to 2023. I think time is compressed here 6 to 1. So 1 year here in the 1920s equates to like 6 years of more recent price action. And it just screams to me that the next 1 year, the next 2 years and 3 years is when we really see this thing go absolutely parabolic. And to Chris's point, damn, we turned Luke into a nearly. But I think what this represents for Bitcoin is, again, if correlations hold true, if Bitcoin continues to lag gold by about 90 to 100 days, what the price of gold is screaming is that we're about to break any correlation or models that we've seen over the past 50 years. The most recent price action in gold is showing us we're in a different paradigm. Gold is no longer correlated to treasuries. All of those correlations over the past 50 years have completely broken. Gold's parabolic run over the past 2 years has shown that we're in a different paradigm. And everybody in TradFi is saying, oh, but I'm going to wait for these gaps to correct. They're going to squeeze back together. But what if they don't? What if gold is literally running off to the races and all the correlations are broken? To Anthony's comment, please. I think gold's fine, but Bitcoin's just going to demonetize gold in 10 years. So for me, I'm back in the fastest horse. How about you, Opti?
I mean, I never left. I don't have any. Look, I don't have any Bitcoin, but if I did have investments, There'd only be one. And of course, it is Bitcoin. There is no second best. But I do like that chart. That is an interesting view. And again, whether you're bullish on Bitcoin or you're bullish on gold or whatever, you're bullish on hard assets. If that does play out, the next 6 years, gold's just going to continue to go parabolic. What's that mean? $20,000 per ounce. Like, what is that telling us about what's going on in the world right now? Not good things. That's absolutely not a good scenario to be in if that is the case. And it really reminds me of, did you see we played it on yesterday's show, but did you see that clip of Balaji explaining that, normal inflation is at 2%. Hyperinflation is kind of considered to be around like 50%. And he kind of coined a new term of superinflation, which is like 10%. And we're essentially living that superinflation moment. And when you were talking, it reminded me of what he was saying. And so maybe this superinflation scenario that we find ourselves in isn't as drastic as a hyperinflationary scenario where things happen basically overnight or over a span of a few years. We're seeing this be drawn out, and that's kind of the connection that you were showing in that chart. We are seeing that things are maybe, like we said in a couple of other videos, that when we look back at today, maybe this will be that moment where everyone realizes that, yeah, okay, this is when Bitcoin took over. But since we're living it day to day and things happen a little slower, it might be that it's happening over a decade or, 2 decades for the Bitcoin to really take over the world. But we are seeing that there are signals that all the fiat currencies in the world are hyperinflating. They're just happening at a slowly they're happening at a slower rate. And so it's not happening at such a short time span because the money printers haven't absolutely gone ballistic. So yeah, man, it is crazy if that does hold up, to look at where we are right now and be like, man, no wonder we are having so many societal problems. Like, no wonder there's so much turmoil going on, is because we are hyperinflating in slow motion, literally in slow motion. It's not happening in 4 years. It's happening over a span of 20 years. And every country is hyperinflating. It's on a global level. It's not just one country. Like, this is nuts. Anyways, I did look up the market cap here. So here, I'll pull that up for you guys so we can look at this real quick. It is coin market cap. I feel dirty every time I come on this website, but it was the fastest search, guys. Okay, so instead of the price, we're looking at the market cap. And if you remember what that clip said, essentially, Bitcoin will get to a $15 trillion market cap faster than 18 years. And if we're using this chart to kind of gauge where we are in that scenario, Bitcoin broke its $1 trillion market cap roughly 2021, the beginning of 2021. So we're still 4 years into this run to $15 trillion market cap. So I mean, faster than that, it's starting to align up very well with 2030. I don't know. I forget what your predictions are for 2030, but we have all the famous predictions of anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million per coin by 2030. So it seems like we are perfectly in line with that prediction that we'll get to a $15 trillion market cap faster than the Mag 7 did in 18 years. So it'll be, I don't know, what would that be, about 9 years? Half the time? Hey, half the time to a $15 trillion market cap. That's super bullish. So if you guys still think I'm bearish, no, I'm bearish on where the traditional economy is. Still super bullish on where Bitcoin is going. Anyways, let's keep moving because I just noticed the time and we're a little behind. So we'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 5-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io Starlink.com/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
All right, guys. So I'm going to rip through this because I really want to get to the culture, but we have some new developments coming out of the United States. So this is on the block.co, and Senate Democrats have now unveiled their own crypto market structure framework, which is obviously, as we've been saying for a while, really interesting in the sense of this is setting the stage for bipartisan talks in regards to pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto regulations. So this isn't the same as the Clarity Act. We have seen that there is a push for the Clarity Act. There's a lot of rumors that that's going to get passed. I think they were saying October, but at the earliest, or, end of year at the latest. But it seems like Senate Democrats have finally thrown their hat into the ring. So I will skim this over. And then I don't know, Luke, if you have some thoughts on this. But there is some stark differences here. This does have a kind of, I don't know, anti-Trump angle from this, which personally am not even that mad when you really hear the angle. But anyways, quick take. Senate Democrats outlined their plan to regulate the digital assets market structure from token classification to DeFi oversights. The framework set up negotiations with Republicans over ethics, restrictions, enforcement, and the pace of legislation. A group of 12 Senate Democrats included a detailed 7-pillar framework on Tuesday for regulating U.S. crypto markets, marking the party's most comprehensive proposal to date. Remember what Nico's been saying, and I personally don't fully agree with it, but he's like, if the Democrats came out pro-Bitcoin and the Republicans didn't, then I would probably vote for them. Well, it seems like they're finally waking up and they're finally throwing their hat in the ring. Whether this is a good regulatory framework or not is probably still up for debate, but they're finally waking up to the writing on the wall, which you got to give them some credit. So while the plan signals Democrats' readiness to negotiate with Republicans on long-stalled market structure legislation, it also sharpens the dividing lines over ethics and enforcement. The group, including Senators Ruben Gallego, Mark Warner, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Cory Booker, framed the nearly $4 trillion global crypto market as too large to remain in regulatory limbo. Totally agree with that, to be honest. Their blueprint emphasizes investor protections, closing regulatory gaps, and curbing what they describe as potential corruption linked to President Trump and his family's various crypto ventures. Quote, digital asset technology has the potential to unlock new business and spur American innovation. But questions about digital assets' place in the U.S. regulatory framework have hobbled both innovation and consumer protection. At its core, the framework could give the CFTC new powers over spot markets for non-security tokens, while creating a process to determine whether a digital asset falls under the SEC's jurisdiction as a security. It also outlines disclosure requirements for token issuers, crypto-specific rulemaking for exchanges and custody providers, and strict anti-manipulation and consumer protection standards. So, it's on paper, it sounds pretty good. I'm glad they're finally coming to the table here. Obviously, the Republicans have been endorsing the Clarity Act that has been spearheaded by Senator Lummis. They have been getting a lot of pushback from the Democrats, but finally they have thrown their hat in the ring and they're finally making some moves. Now, this is probably, what is going to get most of the headline here. Not gonna lie. I've been seeing you guys in the chat saying that what Trump's doing is hurting the Bitcoin industry more than helping. I even had my dad text me the other day and say, what's Trump is the price doing well because of what Trump's done? And I'm like, it was like Friday night or Saturday, and I'm like, what did he do now? Like, what's going on now? And he's like, no, not Trump, his sons. And I'm like, oh, well, it's still up for debate whether they're helping or hurting. Anyways, here's the last thing, and then maybe we'll just rip into the culture. But one of the most politically charged sections targets ethics, barring elected officials and their families from launching or profiting from crypto projects while in office, and mandating disclosure of their holdings. The Democrats allege President Trump has, quote, turned to digital asset projects to enrich himself and his family, abusing his office for corruption with no modern precedent, undermining confidence in the broader digital asset industry. They also call for increased funding for financial regulators and a guarantee of bipartisan representation in the rulemaking, warning against one-sided control of the agencies. Now, I think this in some sense is a good thing. I don't believe that any politician should be creating a shitcoin. I actually don't believe anyone should be creating a shitcoin. So, I kind of agree with this. No, it is obviously a little more politically charged than that per se. But hey, I think this is a good thing. And that last point, I think, is the main point. Like, we agree here, or we fully believe Bitcoin is for enemies. That Bitcoin isn't a one-sided problem here. This isn't just a Republican issue. This isn't just a Democrat issue. This is an everyone issue. And so whether we break this down and it's actually not that good of legislation, I think the most important aspect of this is that they're finally waking up to the fact that they have to actually embrace this industry in some way. I'm sure once we get into all of the details, it's probably not that good. Just being completely honest here. But that's my overall take on this. At least they are finally waking up to what is happening. So they don't have their heads dug in the sand anymore. They're finally starting to wake up. So, hey, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here. I'll pat them on the back when they do something good, and it's at least attempting to find some good regulatory clarity here. So it's no longer just a partisan issue. Both sides of the aisle have finally come to the table, and we'll see if anything really comes of it. I'm sure there'll be more infighting and more fighting and, making this one partisan issue, et cetera, et cetera. So not too hopeful on it, but that's a recent development on it. So, Luke, do you want to touch on this, or do you want to go into this wallet stuff?
I think if Bitcoin's biggest sign up for Bitcoin, I think that's
You're in the matrix a little bit.
Let's do the wallet stuff.
Okay. Refresh and we'll be right back. All right. Tio Malo, I think you're right. It sounds like they want to find a way to dip their hands in the honey pot without getting stung. I think that's probably the take here. Anyways, let's get into culture. There's some interesting stuff happening with wallets being hacked. Yesterday, it seemed like it was catastrophic. Today, we realize if you're using a Bitcoin only wallet, you're probably good to go, and it wasn't as bad as everyone thought it was. So I'll give you a full update on what it was, and then I will point out which wallets we know for sure aren't affected. So let's get into that.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at HIVEdigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitcoinBend.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe. featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Ben's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank, and you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys, tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth, and join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinben.io, join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
Okay, guys. Well, looks like I lost Luke, but we're all good. We're all good. Okay, so I'm going to lean on the Block's coverage of this because they did a good initial article on this, and then they did a recent update, and then I will kind of show you guys some tweets so you guys, you know, don't panic too hard here. So we have this initial. So there was a tweet by the Ledger CTO. He posted this on Twitter. Everyone was freaking out. Everyone was basically asking themselves the same question. Is my cold storage safe or not? Should I not make transactions? What can I do? Like, what is going on? So the TLDR, the short of it is Ledger CTO warns users to halt on-chain transactions amid massive NPM supply chain attack. So he issued a warning that on-chain and hardware crypto transactions may temporarily be at risk. Quote, there's a large-scale supply chain attack in progress. The NPM account of a reputable developer has been compromised. So going into this a little morning, again, he did this tweet. And last night, even, you know, our Slack and Simply, we were all talking about it. It happened after the show in the evening. And basically, we were all wondering, like, okay, so don't use my wallets right now. Like, what's going on? What exactly is going on? It was really muddied yesterday. No one really knew what was going on. And then later, a lot of the more prominent Bitcoin companies, Bitcoin wallet companies, were essentially telling the users, hey, like, we're good. So anyways, going into this, quote, there's a large-scale supply chain attack in progress. The NPM account of a reputable developer has been compromised. The affected packages have already been downloaded over 1 billion times, meaning the entire JavaScript ecosystem may be at risk. If you use a hardware wallet, pay attention to every transaction before signing, and you're safe. If you don't use a hardware wallet, refrain from making any on-chain transactions for now. And that's basically where everyone was freaking out last night. So, quote, a supply chain attack currently affected the NPM account of reputable developers, the largest supply chain attack ever. So when everyone heard this last night, we were like, holy shit. Are we all wrecked here? Anyways, the supply chain attack involves hackers compromising a trusted part of the software distribution process rather than targeting individual users. The malicious payload works by silently swapping crypto addresses on the fly to steal funds. In simple terms, it appears a hacker took over the account of a trusted software developer on NPM, a popular platform where developers share code for JavaScript projects. These compromised packages have allegedly been downloaded over 1 billion times, potentially affecting any number of websites and apps, including crypto projects. As of now, it appears that the hacker was able to add code that changes cryptocurrency addresses in the background, thereby tricking users into sending money to the hacker instead of their intended recipient. So that's, the short of what happened. Now, here's the update from today. So the NPM supply chain attack on crypto it's been contained with, quote, almost no victims. Essentially, from what I saw, Arkham data shows that less than $505 was stolen by bad actors during the incident. I saw there was a lot of Bitcoin wallet companies kind of updating on Twitter, and I'll kind of show you guys that in a minute. So the supply chain attack on the Node package manager ecosystem fortunately failed with almost no victims after a phishing campaign let attackers publish malicious updates to popular JavaScript packages. packages before the compromise was detected and shut down. As you know, it happened yesterday, or at least that's when it came up to everyone's attention. He added that implementation mistakes caused CI and CD pipelines to crash, triggering rapid discovery and limiting the impact size. The immediate danger may have passed, but the threat hasn't. Urging users to favor hardware wallets and clear signing protections. The attackers only netted, again, about $500, which Arkham kind of showed, which said the funds went to addresses cited by Juliman in his initial alert. So that's the update on it. Yesterday, it seemed like all of us were at risk, and then it kind of turned out that it wasn't as bad as we thought. Anyways, shouts out to Sessions. He did a whole video on this, like an emergency broadcast. If you want to really, get Sessions taken, break down exactly what's going on. But I'm guessing all you really want to know is my hardware wallet, is my cold storage affected or not? Now, this isn't a conclusive list, but as of this moment, these are the wallets that have officially came out on Twitter. And I did verify most of these because, I was looking at my own wallet. I'm like, are my wallets affected here? So I did see all of them tweet yesterday that they're not affected. Again, I'm not much of a coder, so I do have to trust their official kind of PRs about this. But confirm unaffected NPM attack are Cove Wallet, Nunchuck, Aqua Bitcoin, Blockstream, Sparrow, Wasabi, Cold Card, Spectre, Electrum, Foundation, Self-Custody Crux, Seed Signer, BitKeeper, Blitz Wallet app, Bull Bitcoin, Bitbox, Trezor, Neutron, Blue Wallet, and Phoenix Wallet. So as of now, that's why, and I think Ledger also said that they are not affected. So most of the main, I think what I saw as the TLDR, like most of the Bitcoin only, I saw BitKey say they're not affected. Most of the Bitcoin only wallets are totally unaffected by this. So if you have a Bitcoin only wallet, you should be good to go. The idea yesterday, we're still kind of up for debate on if you're all of the popular hot wallets, like, wallets on your phone are fully in the clear. But usually if you're Bitcoin only at this point, you're completely unaffected. And one last take from Sessions, and he did update on yesterday's show. Many wallets have now publicly made statements on if they are officially affected. Thankfully, many are not. And some that were have taken steps to mitigate. Best course of action is, of course, to check accounts of wallets you personally use. I tried to thread some unaffected wallets that I just read. Please still be diligent as always in checking addresses when copying and pasting, and always defer to your hardware device screen when spending from cold storage. It should be considered your beacon of truth. So if you are in a Bitcoin only wallet, hardware wallet, you're pretty much good to go. It does seem like it's really only affecting shitcoin website wallets. So like MetaMask, I heard was where a lot of the noise came from. They literally only got shitcoins. So I was looking at it, the Arkham data, and actually maybe while we chat about this, maybe I can update to see if they actually got any Bitcoin. It seems like they only got shitcoins on this. So this is why we always tell you Bitcoin only hardware wallets are the way, because there is less complexity in them and you won't get scammed from all of these phishing attacks. So I'm looking over here. Let me see. Okay, here. I think I got it. Okay, let's check it. So here's the they got more. Okay, so here I'm over at Arkham, intro.arkham.com. Now, I guess the most recent update is they have about $940.46 from this hack. Again, it looks like they are only getting shitcoins here. So it seems to have only affected shitcoin wallets, shitcoin website wallets, like MetaMask and stuff like that. So if you are Bitcoin only, have a Bitcoin only hardware wallet, it seems like you are completely safe from this. So again, don't hold my word as gospel here, but it seems like most of the Bitcoin only wallets are completely unaffected. When this kind of came out, everyone was freaking out. We're like, oh shit. I was literally like, damn. So like what? Don't use any wallets right now? Like, oh shit. Damn, did I back up my wallets? I save from this? Like, do I have money that I can use? But yeah, it seems like it wasn't as big of an attack as we all thought it was. So that's really good news. And then obviously, if you're using Bitcoin only wallets, then seem to have been completely unaffected. So, yeah. It looks like it wasn't as big of yes, Ron, Foundation is good. I read them.
I think at the end of the day, Opti, the takeaway here is Bitcoin in hardware wallets is the play. What do we always say? Never keep more than $1,000 in a phone wallet or a desktop wallet, because that thing is connected to the internet. And I think that is the most risky, wallet to be using, so to say. If you have a hardware wallet that verifies your addresses offline, from my understanding, I dived into it for maybe an hour yesterday, but from my understanding, if you had a hardware wallet, you're golden. And like you said, like Arkham showed, it was all shit coins that have been stolen.
That was like my biggest signal. You know, when I was looking at this yesterday, when it was at $500, when I looked at it, I literally looked at it and it was like, okay, they got like 5 different shit coins. I'm like, all right, this is like a shitcoin problem. It's not that huge concern if you're Bitcoin only. Now, of course, if you guys aren't just holding Bitcoin on the Bitcoin cold storage hardware devices that we recommend, then yeah, maybe you need to check and make sure that you are protected in the future. But like Sessions was saying, and like Luke just said, the best way to mitigate this is to, confirm that the address on your hardware wallet is exactly where you are sending it to. And if it's not, do not send the transaction. That's the best way to mitigate this until your, the devs on the wallet that you're personally using have updated. Send a patch to this. So for most of us here, I'm sure you guys are fine. But if you aren't using those wallets that I mentioned, I would be cautious. But for most of us in Bitcoin only hardware wallets, you're pretty much good to go. So yes, there are attacks on your cold storage. There are attacks on people. There are scammers out there. Remember, everyone is a scammer. They want to take your Bitcoin from you. So you definitely want to protect yourself. But yeah, it was kind of crazy. It was kind of crazy yesterday. I literally, for a moment, was like, oh man, are we all wrecked here?
I was the same. I had to pay an employee last night, and I pay everyone in Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Let me just do a little bit of digging on Twitter first to find out whether I can actually send this transaction or not. So yeah, from my digging, it looks all good. But again, the first practice principles that were getting talked about a lot yesterday were double, triple, and quadruple check that every single number or letter and that address that you are sharing matches. And obviously, if you're doing that on a hardware wallet, you're pretty golden.
Yeah, 100%. So again, seemed very catastrophic last night. I'm glad that all of the main Bitcoin wallet providers made the tweets so that we can feel a little better about our cold storage and confirm whether we can actually transact right now. Though I did find it interesting that the Ledger CTO was like, don't make on-chain transactions, and we're all wondering like, what's that have to do with anything? Like, no on. All right, well, maybe it's because all these shitcoin adjacent layer ones. But I did see a funny one of these shitcoiners. I forget what his name is, but he's kind of funny. His content's kind of funny. He's like doing this video of him running. He's like, the blockchain has been hacked. I can't even send my Bitcoin, and he's like running. It's over. Yeah, that was pretty funny. He's a shitcoiner, but he makes some funny content. Anyways, let's see. Let me see if there's anything you guys want me to confirm for you guys. I don't know. I mean, maybe. Yeah. Actually, this is right. Yes, your stack in the ETF on exchanges is fine. Okay, so maybe this is a win for centralized control of your Bitcoin. This is what. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm trolling. All right, guys. Well, we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for trolling me in the chat every single day. It really warms my heart. Of course, smash the like button, comment on the show, hit the sub button, and we will be back tomorrow. I know the time says 12:16, but it's really 12:30, guys. So, you know, you guys can keep yelling at me. I see you. I literally start the show when you guys start yelling at me a lot. Okay. So you already know. Anyways, Luke, thanks for coming on, man. Another successful day at the office. So hope you guys got something from this. Luke, do you want to say final words before we sign off?
I've got absolutely nothing except thanks for putting up with my dodgy internet connections. Have a good day, guys.
All right, later, guys. We will see you tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.